fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerfherder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
Didn't give half the. We've seen trailers for this thing for like months now, and I think they're giving way too much away, as they always do in these trailers.
Well,
So,
we'll see.
I guess we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of giving stuff away, I saw a much more detailed trailer for Nope before.
I know, me
Again.
too.
Yeah.
Stop showing me stuff.
And about halfway through, I'm like, maybe I better close my eyes for this too, because I don't want to know this much.
See, the interesting thing is that I'm so excited to see Nope that seeing more stuff in the trailer just made me more excited to see the film. Like I am really, and I'm not the same way about spoilers as you guys are either. So
you're good with spoilers?
most of the time they don't bother me unless it's like a big twist, like at the end of a movie, then I'm usually like,
Yeah,
you know?
or halfway through the movie, you're like, wait, that scene from the trailer hasn't showed up yet. So now you're expecting this stuff. I don't know. I like to just, there's a reason I stopped watching trailers to next week's previews of Lost, because they would set your expectations and then they would screw with you.
But
Whatever.
I'm so
We're
super
in.
excited to see Nope.
My wife saw that trailer and she's like, nope. And I'm like, I wonder how many times people are saying that. Nope. No, thank you.
I wonder if that came to him after they made it, or like he started with that title.
You
Because
know what it means, right?
yeah,
No.
well, it's an acronym, but I don't know.
I assumed it was.
It escapes me at this point. What
Not
it
of
actually
planet
means.
Earth.
That's a made up one. That's like UAPs. Like they're no longer UFOs.
That's convenient. Is
Yes, sir.
that's the, because I think that gets the most reaction is when the title comes up from the
Right.
audience, watching the trailer.
Nope. Well, I guess now we know what it's about.
I'm so excited for that.
So what
movie,
else did
though.
we get now that we're on this trailer subject before
Oh,
seeing
man.
Jurassic World? Because this is a big movie. They try to unload their trailers before the biggest movies. And Christina, right before you came on, Jeff and
Yeah.
I had mentioned 3,000 Years of Longing. Did you see the trailer for this, the new George
No.
Miller?
No.
Because I know I also mentioned, and this has to be a coincidence because, this Everything Everywhere was just released a few months ago. Walking down the hallway at my Regal to get to the Jurassic Theater, walking past that wall of coming soon posters, saw the poster for 3,000 Years of Longing and just happened to see the trailer as well. But the poster is almost like I thought it was the Everything Everywhere poster. I'm like, they're
Oh,
still
really?
they're still hanging this, and then I looked at it more closely, and it was another movie, and it's got Tilda Swinton instead of Michelle Yeoh right in the middle, and all this collage of circular collage around her of shots and things from the movie. Maybe it's like as Jeff said, it could be the same artist. I don't know, but
Maybe, yeah.
And it does
Or
seem to
just-
have that same energy. The trailer, at least, has Everything Everywhere.
If it's half
Wow.
as good as that one.
I saw the movie more than a week ago, so
Yeah.
I have to think about what I saw. I did see the trailer for Nope, which,
Yeah.
I'm just vibrating to see. We saw the trailer for Minions.
Yep.
We saw the trailer for a BJ Novak movie. I think it's called Vengeance. Have you seen the?
No, I didn't see
No,
that.
I don't
I
know.
think it's called Vengeance, but it's about a guy who has like a superficial relationship with this girl. His family thinks it's more serious. So she dies. He goes to her funeral. And it turns out the family believes there was some conspiracy that killed her, and he gets sucked into this.
Oh my.
And I can't tell tonally if it looks like it's supposed to have some degree of comedy, but it looks like a dark comedy if so. So that looked like maybe you would go see that. So another preview for Bullet Train, which we will not talk
Yep.
about because it gives me an aneurysm.
Well, now this is the first time I saw it too, and it's the first time I've seen anything on this movie. I know we've talked about it, but I have been ignorant to it until now. Now that I've seen the trailer,
Wouldn't you like to
even
do-
at the end of it, I'm like, oh, that's the movie they're talking about when they finally give the title, Bullet Train.
What if we did it where we compared it to the original?
Well, to the book, we'd have to read the book.
I thought it was a movie.
No, it's a book.
Oh,
It'd have
I'm
to be a book
sorry.
club, right?
Yeah, it's a book, and it's this is okay.
I thought this.
I mean,
was a
obviously,
remake
there's a lot of
Japanese
things about
movie.
it that make me angry, but just starting with the fact that number one, this is a Japanese book by a Japanese author. All the characters are Japanese, and if you look at the trailer, almost none of the characters are Japanese, so that's infuriating from the get-go. Second of all, if you remember the absolute outrage from people when Scarlett Johansson dared to play a cyborg character in Ghost in the Shell, because the original story is a Japanese comic, and people were coming down on her for cultural appropriation, but nobody seems to do the same thing when Brad Pitt plays a character that's supposed to be Japanese. And
but I also don't think nobody knows what the source material is.
I was just going to say that I wonder what could be different between Brad Pitt and Scarlett Johansson. Maybe we just think on it for a few minutes.
Well, you've got to go online then. You've got to take up the baton, start something.
And the thing is I'm so angry about the whole thing. And, again, and this came up actually last week in the context of Everything Everywhere, where we talked about Ke Kwan not acting for like 20 years because, as he said, there were no good roles for Asian actors. Like I said, you have a source material that would be perfect for all Asian actors. They cast a bunch of Western actors in this film, and it's just infuriating. And it looks like they changed the story completely. So and every time I go to the movie theater, I see a trailer for this movie. It's like it's out to get me.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, you don't want to see it. Is that what you're saying? I think it looks good. But
every time it comes on,
you get mad.
My son puts his hand on my hand and he's like, "It's okay, Mom.
It's okay. Well, I got mad at the damn Black Adam trailer. So.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I saw that too.
Yeah. But I feel no emotion towards that.
No. The other one I did see was Fall.
Oh yeah, we saw that too.
Literally,
like 2
just
seconds.
Somebody fell off.
Yeah, somebody falling off like a tower.
It's just a scene of this incredibly long satellite dish tower in the middle of the desert, and there's two girls climbing it, and then one of them falls, and then it's just the title Fall. I'm like, okay, that's my movie.
Is it like the beginning of that Brad Pitt in space movie that we watched, where he's on that tower that goes into space?
Yeah, basically. I think it's the same scene. The control. Those are the only ones I can remember.
And then Thor, of course. I saw Well, I didn't see it, but it was played. So Jurassic World.
Dominion.
I didn't know, because all the trailers for this just say, actually, it doesn't even say anything. It just has the Jurassic logo. So I didn't know until this weekend that it was subtitled Dominion. Is that like advertised, or is it just the logo? Am I crazy?
Well, no, I think that they're using the branding of the iconic logo in the name Jurassic World.
I thought it was just like the Prince cipher. It's like, there it is. We don't even need to title this thing. You know what you're going to get.
You know what you're getting
into. See this. Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you do know what you're getting into. I just don't think the creators. What are we?
But before we get into this, do you have news? Do we have news this week?
If you wanted to call it news. Do we have any interest in the fact that Lady Gaga is in talks to appear in Todd Phillips' Joker 2 as Harley Quinn?
And also that it's going to be a musical?
It is going to be a musical.
Is it the next Baz Luhrmann movie? I think that's the only way I think I would really be able to get on board with this, is that they made it completely gonzo and off the wall.
I think maybe that's exactly what he's doing. I mean, we raved about the Joker. Whether it fits into DC continuity or not, it doesn't matter. Joaquin Phoenix just kind of did his own thing here. And I feel like Todd Phillips just let him go. So Lady Gaga's really done no wrong recently. I think she's shown her acting chops, and obviously we know she's got singing. Whatever. Do it. I don't care. There might be purists out there who are crying that they don't want to see their Joker dance and sing, but
Well, he was already
I just found it.
dancing quite conclusively.
That is true. Up and down the stairs.
Yeah. They actually have a GIF out now that I thought was hilarious where they input him from that scene into Mamma Mia. So, and it looks pretty good.
Is it a GIF or is it a GIF?
A GIF, Giphy Pop? I don't know.
All right. So anyways, yes, it is a musical. It is not set in stone. She has not signed yet, but I found that one interesting. Only other news item I have, which is Guy Ritchie has signed on to direct the live action Disney Hercules.
Really?
Yes, really.
No, there's a silver lining to this. If you're going to go there, Jeff.
What, that they're going to cast Danny DeVito as the satyr?
No, that they're in talks with Bruce Campbell as Hades.
No, I did not hear that. That is not even on my news item. I just saw the Guy Ritchie thing. That's interesting. I'd be on board with that.
I want to know who they cast as Megara before I decide. Yeah.
I don't know. Who's going to be Hercules? Who's going to walk around with no shirt on?
Some young starlet.
Starlet. Zac Efron?
He's not young anymore, is he? He's not young enough to be Hercules.
Yeah, he played the dad in Firestarter.
Right. Once you start playing dad parts, you're not young enough to be.
That's it. You're done. You're over the hill, my friend.
Hercules anymore.
Grow that dad bod. Those are the only two news items I have, if you even want to call them news. So anything else? Anybody come across anything?
Well, I did. And this is on multiple news feeds that Chris Hemsworth has suggested that Thor Love and Thunder may be his last.
Well, he said he was been bored since the second one.
So I don't know. They would have to obviously write out his story. He just can't not appear anymore. But
well, listen, he's across the galaxy doing something. He's in another realm. He doesn't die. You better not kill Thor.
That's all.
You figured you got Chris Evans out now. Robert Downey Jr.'s out.
After a while, you want to do something else as an actor, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, they're set. We see it. We talk about this, that they're setting up all these other characters. These, whether it's the Young Avengers come to fruition, they're laying the groundwork for some of these other characters.
Well, if you think, I do know, even though I haven't seen the trailer, obviously that Natalie Portman is taking up the hammer in this one.
You know that much? You know that much?
I do know that much. Wow. And then, of course, we have She-Hulk coming in. So Mark Ruffalo is, if this is true about Hemsworth, and he's, besides Jeremy Renner, the last of the originals still standing. We'll see.
Oh, okay. I guess we'll find out. Okay. Jurassic World Dominion. What are we even pairing this up with?
Westworld.
No.
The 1973
Westworld. Crichtonverse.
The Crichtonverse, exactly.
Not the TV show, though. We're going right with the 1973 then.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, Yul Brynner action. Jurassic World. Start us off. Dominion.
So this was obviously an in-theater viewing experience for all of us, as it is not available to stream at this time. Now, you haven't gotten into much detail about this, but I would love to hear, Christina, your theatrical experience, because I think it left a lot to be desired.
Yeah, so I just want to know why people feel the need to talk during a movie. It's like, do you understand that you're not at home this year?
No. Etiquette has gone out the window. People do not care.
So there were people not right in front of me, but sort of right in front of where my husband was sitting, because our son was in between us and then my husband. But they were so loud and they were discussing every single thing that happened. They're having a full conversation about it. And it's like, first of all, I was like, the special effects are very loud.
Oh, this movie was incredibly loud.
Because it would have been worse if
this was loud.
If I could hear them more clearly.
There were long stretches of silence.
And then on top of that, sort of diagonal from me, but again, like in the row right in front of us, there was a family. It looked like a mom and a dad and like somebody's mom, and then like a little kid, like pretty little, 4 or 5.
I like dinosaurs.
Who clearly loved dinosaurs, but he screamed through most of the movie. And when I say screamed, I mean he was screaming
in terror.
I do not know. And sometimes he was just screaming, no.
So was I. That was great. That was me.
And I was like, okay.
Oh,
Again,
man.
just thank you for the very loud special effects. I never thought I'd be so grateful. But, I just wonder sometimes what people are thinking. Like a PG-13 movie, when my son was 5, I did not bring him to PG-13 movies. You just have to assume that the content's going to be in some way too extreme for them,
Yeah. Hence the rating.
Like the rating's there for a
Not
reason.
telling me what to do. I'll bring my kid if I want to.
I mean, that's what people do. Like I said, when last week when we talked about Everything Everywhere, that was a rated R movie, and the people in front of us had 2 very young kids at the movie. And like, yes, you do have the right to bring in whoever you want. Technically, they're not barred from the film as long as they're with a guardian.
No, but now you have a right to explain to your kid why they're shoving statues up their buttocks.
I sort of can forgive the kids' behavior more
It's
than
not the kids. It's not the
right.
kids' fault.
Right. More than like the adults who were having a conversation during the movie. It's
I
like,
remember being at a drive-in, and my sister's 10 years younger than me. And we left the drive-in because my sister was inconsolable about something.
yeah.
You would think that at least in your own car, you wouldn't give a crap. And yet here we are in the 21st century, and people are letting their kids run amok.
I did not have the greatest theater experience. Like I said, I just don't understand why people can't just like not talk during movies.
So was this a matinee that you went to?
Yeah, it was the first show of the day. It was like 10:50 in the morning.
But it was opening weekend as well. So
yes,
you
it was
had the
weekend.
maximum crowd that you
I feel like maybe mommy
get.
was day drinking and just needed a place to hide. 2 hours. Let's take the kids to Jurassic World. I heard there's dinosaurs in there.
So now, Jeff, you and I saw this weekend,
Yes,
this
we did.
past weekend, which was the second weekend of its release.
Yeah, I saw it during the week.
My showing was at 11:50, so I think all the kids were in Lightyear, thankfully, because it was very
That's true.
sparsely populated.
You hear them crying, no. From
But
the
I
other
did
day.
have right behind me, not directly, but just a few seats down behind me in the row, two couples who were older, and when I say older, probably mid 60s,
No.
and
So they
one of
remember
them,
the dinosaurs.
one of them was sleeping, and
Great.
during the silent parts, I could hear them lightly snoring. It was very reminiscent of the sound that Blue makes, actually. So it kind of added to my surround sound experience.
You point out how loud this movie was.
It's loud.
And there were early on, my wife is watching this with her hands over her ears.
Mhm.
There were some scenes early. Yeah, it was loud. Yeah. I don't know if it's the mix. That's interesting that you said the same thing. We all saw it. I guess we got to talk about it.
But I think I mentioned last week, I rewatched the whole franchise before I went to see
Well,
this
that's
movie.
a lot of homework.
So
Including the 2 Jurassic World movies.
yeah, I watched 5 movies
say
before
five,
I
see?
went to see this
And
movie.
she read all 5 books.
And I listened to the audio of the 2 books. The first, the
Jurassic
Crichton
Park
books.
and the Lost World.
Right. Like I said, it's been years and years and years since I read either of them, like when they first came out. So I'd actually forgotten quite a bit about them. One of the interesting things that ties into this film is that if you've only watched the film franchise, Lewis Dodgson, who's the main antagonist of this film, is only mentioned one time way back in the first film where he shows up in Costa Rica to give Nedry the little barbasol.
It is, if anybody's ever seen Jurassic Park, it's a very famous scene. Dodson, we got Dodson here.
But the name is very throwaway thing. Now, in the Jurassic Park, in the novel, there's a couple of scenes where he's shown, so he already plays a more significant role. But in the Lost World, he's a huge part of the story. Spoiler alert, he doesn't survive. He gets eaten by baby T-Rexes, but he is a huge part of the story. So I think if you've read the book, I think you have a little bit of a better idea of who Dodgson is.
Well, I think they did a really bad job of revealing who this character is, because I will tell you, Jim and I have talked off air. Neither of us realized who this character was until after we saw the movie. Putting 2 and 2 together and realizing that was in fact the same character that Dennis Nedry has the dealing with the Barbasol can, which how is it? Are you implying that that's the original can that he gave Nedry?
That's what it seems like, right?
So how did he get that?
I forget which movie it was that we were talking about recently. And Jeff, there was something that you and Christina were going back and forth. And Jeff said, well, maybe they showed that off camera. And it was kind of a funny thing to say. And I thought of that as I was watching this. They must be doing a lot of stuff off camera because they're not explaining it to me what's going on here with this character. Even the relationship between Dodgson and Ramsey. At first, it seems just to be a subordinate and his boss. Right. But then at the end, it's like, wait, are they intimate? What's going on here between these two guys? And they don't explain that either.
The other thing, too, is like, again, in the book, Biosyn is named as the corporation that's trying to steal InGen's technology. So if I hadn't read the book recently before I went to see the film, that would have meant nothing to me that it was Biosyn. Crichton describes Biosyn as the only genetics company that has more lawyers than scientists. And Dodgson's claim to fame is actually that he like ran an unethical rabies vaccine test on like an unsuspecting population and like gave them rabies to test his vaccine. So like there's all this kind of background about Dodgson that's in the book that was never laid in the film franchise. And it was kind of a cool thing if you're a fan of the books to see Dodgson come back and to see Biosyn come back. But I don't know that if you didn't have that connection to the books, that you would really know kind of what's going on there.
And it also doesn't help that it's not the same actor. So.
Right. It's Campbell Scott, who I just found out recently who Campbell Scott is. I'm so stupid.
In terms of what else he's done?
No, he's George C. Scott's son.
Is that what the C stands for?
He doesn't really resemble him physically. And like, sure, both names are Scott, but that's sort of a common name. So like I didn't necessarily put two and two together, but I was listening to a podcast with another actor who was talking about growing up near George C. Scott when he was a kid and playing like with Campbell Scott. Wow. And
so,
I was like,
you know what? I didn't know that either. So what we're going to have to do now is go through like the roster of every famous actor and see what their last name is and see if there's a connection to somebody else.
Yeah, but a lot of times they change their last name.
But they don't
want to be associated with their parents.
I was like, oh, I'm so dumb. Why did I never realize this? But he doesn't like physically resemble his dad. So his mom is Colleen Dewhurst, another famous actress.
I don't know who that is.
I've seen this guy on in a ton of movies on and off for years and never realized that he was a Hollywood kid.
But before we get off the subject of Campbell, the other unanswered thing, his character is just very strange all the way around. At the beginning, he asks Ramsey, do you have any food? Do you have any food? I got, then he leaves.
Got my crackers or
I'm
something.
like, what's going on with that? Is he got some kind of a genetic flaw that he needs to eat constantly? You see him munching throughout the movie,
right?
But they never tell you what the deal is with that either.
No, the plot is convoluted and there's so many things that they throw at you. I truly feel that the creators of this forgot what franchise they were writing for. First of all, you're jumping all over the world, all these different sites. At the end of Fallen Kingdom, we were left with the idea that dinosaurs now inhabit the earth, live side by side with humans. How are we going to rectify that?
The issue is that like this black market thing has sprung up where people are breeding dinosaurs and trading them. And so they're kind of all over the world. So I didn't think that part was confusing. It seemed like they were trying to move toward a future where they at least had contained the dinosaurs. But obviously Biosyn's motivations are suspect.
You see, I would love, and I got this impression at the end of the last movie that they were going to go in like the Rise of the Planet of the Apes direction, where they would only be
dinosaurs for hire kind of.
They'd only be like a few human survivors, and it would be like a wasteland, and the dinosaurs would take over the earth.
Well, I will tell you when I saw Owen lassoing the Parasaurolophus, I'm like, Valley of the Guanji would have been perfect with this.
I think if you watch the other two films, they're also trying to put in a lot of they had to have a scene where they bring back Barry, right? Omar Sy. They which I love him, so I was glad to see him. But it does feel like kind of a weird interlude, just an excuse to get him back on screen.
Right. There's so many interludes. This whole chase scene in where they go and they're trying to find Maisie because she's been kidnapped. And you take away those dinosaurs and you got Owen racing around on a motorcycle. It's just the last James Bond movie.
With dinosaurs.
With dinosaurs. He's jumping onto a moving plane. You're now Fast and Furious. It just had nothing to do with the storyline. You got Jurassic fight club going on here with these underground. Listen,
They-
right
you
off
know-
the bat, I didn't get my Timmy, I didn't get my Lexi, and I didn't get my Dennis Nedry zombie. So I was already salty going into this.
It does seem like they're trying to put a lot into this movie. It's like they're trying to have references back to the Jurassic World film, both of the Jurassic World films and the Jurassic Park films and the books, like I said, like instituting, like giving Dodgson and Biosyn a bigger role. It seems like they're trying to put a lot into this movie. That said, I was diverted for the length of the film. Like my attention didn't wane.
We talk about this idea of these bringing in these legacy characters, and I am so happy. It was great to see the original three come back. They had their own storyline. It wasn't like the Ghostbusters where they just show up at the end and save the day.
Right.
They actually had their own storyline. But when the two stories converged and all the characters finally met at the end, that's when it got fun. But then it just turned into a rehash of let's get the park back online from the original Jurassic Park. It was fun. Some of the dinosaurs were cool. Dirozenosaurus with the big giant claws. He's an herbivore. He's not going to eat her.
It's interesting too that you say that, because one of the things I really thought about this time watching all the films is that the carnivores in all these films do not act the way carnivores act in the wild. Like these carnivorous dinosaurs are like constantly aggressive.
Right. Yeah.
Like going after everything that they see. Like carnivores don't act like that in the wild. Like, a bear might go after you, but it might just leave you alone.
Right.
Right.
Well, I did like the fact that when the T-Rex comes up and Claire is in the woods and it comes across the dead deer, it starts scavenging. Most paleontologists believe that they were scavengers. They weren't necessarily hunters.
And again,
he was just eating something dead he found in the woods.
That's carnivore behavior, because carnivores are actually
opportunistic.
They're right. And they look for low risk opportunities. That's why they go after babies
chasing
and
after
herds.
something. Right. Chasing something's going to take a lot of energy out of you. Then you have to eat more.
Right.
It's a vicious cycle. It's tough being a dinosaur.
And I always thought they could get away with this in the films by saying that these weren't really dinosaurs. They're sort of genetically created monsters, right? They're not really actual dinosaurs, and so therefore they don't behave the way that dinosaurs might have. And I always sort of gave the films a pass with that. But just sort of looking at this film in the arc of the whole six, obviously nothing as good as the first one.
No.
But I would say that I enjoyed this one more than 2 or 3. Not that I dislike those two. I think I liked this one more than those.
I would agree. And going into this, and maybe I'm going to do this from this point on, I didn't look at what the runtime was. So I wasn't going into it thinking this is a 2.5 hour movie. So I kind of am prejudiced against the movie beforehand when I think of it that way.
Right.
So I sat down and maybe I didn't think of it, but I just didn't look to see what the runtime was. And it didn't feel like it was 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I felt
it did move along really quickly.
Yeah. I made the mistake last week of saying that the original Jurassic Park is like a very terse 90-minute. It's not. I looked it up. It's over 2 hours. Yeah. But it flows. It's I don't know. I had some issues with this.
Before we get off the subject of carnivores and herbivores.
Okay.
I just want to say that they also, and I'm going to call that one dinosaur with the claws Edward, because he's Edward Scissorhands, basically.
I thought I was going to say Freddy Krueger.
So herbivores are jerks, apparently, because
you just slanted that deer's eyes.
He slapped it. Yeah. And that's why it was dead, because it broke its neck or whatever. And that's why the T-Rex came.
And he was just, but here's, now that you point that out though, because at the end, when you have the big fight with the Giganotosaurus or Giganotosaurus.
The Gigabitosaurus is what I call it. Yeah.
Because apparently I'm on a handful of dinosaur Facebook groups, and these people are all up in arms that they're mispronouncing the name of this creature. But anyways, at the end, they gang up this Therizinosaurus and the T-Rex, our hero from all 6 franchise movies, beat up on this guy. And I'm like, well, maybe they have this symbiotic relationship, because right after that Freddy Krueger, Edward Scissorhands guy slashes the deer, then the T-Rex comes along and eats it. So
yeah, maybe they're friends. Maybe it's like Godzilla and Jet Jaguar. You know, they shake hands after.
So now that you point that out, that maybe, because at the end, right? So they gang up, and you're like, all right, this guy must have been a big bully. That they're like, let's put our differences aside, man. Let's take this guy out. And then the saddest part about that whole ending, they couldn't high five.
Oh yeah, well they could head bump, right? They could do that. You wouldn't want to high five Edward Scissorhands, by the way, even if you didn't have long enough arms.
T-Rex has his tiny arms.
Yeah, see, it's a visual.
So, and that was also, while we're talking T-Rex, I've been reading online that there's some fans of the T-Rex that feel like he was underutilized.
Did you see
disrespected?
Trevor Rowe's response on Twitter to that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that he was, this, and it does make sense. But again, if this is unsaid in the movie, that this T-Rex is the same T-Rex, so now she's older. And
I think we all just assume that it's the same T-Rex in all these movies. Although, did you catch it right at when she does show up at the very end, and they're in front of that waterfall with the big statue, the round statue, like she pauses inside to make the Jurassic Park logo, and I'm like, come on. If
you're a fan of the series, I thought there was a ton of fun little callbacks.
There are a lot of nice little callbacks. Like I said, it was great to see these guys, Ellie Sattler and Alan Grant, to see them together. And because when you watch that original movie, you were like, these two are meant to be together. And then, of course, they all go their separate ways in the sequels, and one shows up in one, and she's now got a family. Mm-hmm. I adored the fact that they got them back together. I actually got a little choked up when
I know.
Of course, I'm coming with you, and it's cute. I was convinced that they were going to kill off Ian.
I thought it was so cute when she went into the tent and he still had the picture of the two of them.
I know.
And then he took it down and put it in his pocket. So she already saw it, dude.
He goes, well, you were happy. He goes, I wasn't happy. Of course I'm coming with you. And you're just like, I'm getting goosebumps right now because, you have an affection for these characters. But I just felt that there was Chris Pratt starting to wear on me.
To me as well. It's like, if he's not in an MCU movie, I really don't have much
because he just plays the same
use
character
for him.
He's playing the same character. And even this, it's like he's phoning it in. But like, can we stop? Now, I'm thankful that this franchise is over, because can we stop with the whole damn hand thing? Like, this was a meme 6 years ago, and every character in this movie does it.
11 from Stranger Things, she would excel in Jurassic World. She's got the hand thing down.
It's like a joke. It's like, come on. I don't know.
There is a lot going on in this movie, and I definitely think that they could have helped themselves if they streamlined it a little bit, in the sense of like making it clear, like who Dodgson is, who Biosyn is.
Yes,
like,
I think that would have gone a long way to explain who that guy was. You would have had more emotional, because he does die the exact same way that Nedry dies. He gets taken out by the Dilophosauruses, who, by the way, don't have frilled necks or spit venom. But that's neither here nor there. They've committed to this universe because we all know the velociraptors are nowhere near as big as these guys.
And also they can get away with it because they're not real dinosaurs. They filled in the gaps in the genetic code. They made something else that is not dinosaur.
Fine. Then make them hyper. They can fly and shit. Like what Jim was just saying. Come back with a Planet of the Apes type of where these dinosaurs are now intelligent and running societies. We don't even talk about Maisie. They retconned Maisie's one movie in, and you're already retconning how this kid came to be. The whole plot of last movie, you found out, was that Lockwood had created a clone of his dead daughter who died in a car crash.
Yeah.
And they just changed that for why? Why? So that he doesn't look like a jerk?
Well, it's central to this plot because, of course, Biosyn is like the mean corporation that's behind everything here. But are their intentions really evil? Now, we haven't even mentioned Henry Wu yet. BD Wong is back.
Well, I think that...
And I think that retcons him as well.
I think that Dodgson's intentions are evil because it's pretty clear that he had Wu create these locusts that would eat crops, but not Biosyn crops, right?
Which is weird. This is a really weird, like, mad scientists. We can't just like poison the other people's crops or somehow we're just going to create these giant locusts.
But Henry Wu, played by BD Wong, is just getting sick and tired of being nefarious over the years. So the guilt
he's been used in every one of these movies.
The guilt is finally caught up with him. So he wants now, after he's done this atrocious thing with the crops and the locusts, which are terrifying, by the way. That's by far the most scariest thing in this movie. It was funny because my son, when the locusts first appeared, when the two kids are on the farm and they see the first one jump up on the fence, my son leans over to me and says, "I'd never go outside again."
Well, have you ever had a grasshopper or a locust spit tobacco in your hand? Because that's their defense mechanism. They spit tobacco that makes them bitter to eat. So imagine how much tobacco these things are spitting out. And I know it's not called, that's what we call it, was tobacco. It's like chewed tobacco. It's black. It's like a black goo.
So Wu wants Maisie now to rectify his mistakes. So he can actually create a virus in these locusts to kill them all. If Maisie would sit down and let him take some blood, right?
So the fact that they're hiding her for 4 years caused this. They could have just given her up. Yeah, let me just take some blood. Yeah, and they kept saying that Maisie was the original IP, like she is the. But wouldn't that make all the dinosaurs an IP? I own all those. I own those dinosaurs. I created the DNA. I created the matrix that created them.
That's getting to my point. Is the Biosyn company is actually doing right by the dinosaurs because they're collecting them and putting them in a preserve. It's the wheat thing that's sketchy.
Right. Owen and Claire had a point. I mean, they told Maisie, like, as soon as you step out there, someone's going to try to take you and put you in a lab. And as soon as she defied them in the way that teenagers do, and I kind of felt for them. I was like, man, like they get
because they can't do the right. Yeah,
you know, like they have all the drawbacks of having a moody teenager without ever having like the cuddly part of having a baby.
This is Stranger Things when Hopper's got 11 locked away for her own good, and she's like, I just want to get out of this cabin.
Right.
And people have devoted 4 years of their life protecting this little girl. Mm-hmm. And she's like, you guys are just a bunch of jerks. I need to get away.
Right. She's like, you're not my mother.
You're not my mother. Stop protecting me. Although, again, as soon as my parents, those are my parents. And I'm like, oh, see?
Now they're her parents, right?
And there's a little parallel with Blue and the baby.
Yeah. Blue. I was just going to say, fans of Blue are not going to get a lot from this movie, unfortunately, because she's basically a cameo.
I don't think they could afford her. I think she's getting too high maintenance. So.
But in the beginning, we also get the characters of these black market poachers. And it felt like I was on Kilimanjaro safaris in Animal Kingdom during the beginning of this movie. As an aside, I love that ride. They try to work in a story as you're looking at the animals on that safari ride. But so, yes, there's this whole underworld, as Jeff said before, of animal fights and animal black market sales.
Which
and
you would think would really happen.
Which, this does lend some realism to what's going on here, because there would be definitely people that would take advantage of this. But Owen and Claire have to enter into that world to try to get Maisie back. And then, of course, it brings them to Biosyn eventually.
Yeah, it's just an excuse for them to get a hold of an airplane, basically.
But I completely agree about the legacy cast and how there's two separate movies going on almost, where it's Ellie and Ian and Alan who have infiltrated, Ian especially, Biosyn.
Yeah, I was going to say, so what was his plan? Because he was working for Biosyn. He was working for Dodson, but was it just to get inside?
Well, no, it was Ramsey. It was Ramsey who got Ian to come because Ramsey knew about the locust thing. Okay, so he was hoping Ian could.
Well, there is that scene with Ramsey when Alan and Ellie get in there and he's like, oh, well, feel free to walk around. Just don't go down the elevator and hit left, right, because that's our secret lab right there. And it's going to take a special key. And I'm like, are we really doing this? But then you find out that, yes, he is setting them up to actually get in there.
And then right after that, I saw Obi-Wan walk by with the trench coat and a big lump underneath it.
Was Maisie under there?
I was glad that they redeemed Wu in this.
I agree with you, because like I said, he's been used throughout this entire franchise. When you first see him in the first movie, he's like, look what we're doing. And by the end, he's like, look what I've done. And
then you go back to, going back to the book, he was actually a character who didn't survive the book.
A lot of people didn't survive the book.
He was killed by a raptor.
Hammond got eaten by Compusauruses at the end. Yeah.
So it was just really interesting for me, I think, to watch this in the context of the whole film franchise and the books, and sort of seeing all the elements that they tried to incorporate into this. You know, a lot of people didn't like Fallen Kingdom, but I actually liked it a lot. I thought it
The
was,
dinosaur haunted house.
yeah, that was spooky with especially the created
that falls
dinosaur.
into one of the traps of, oh look, there's a dumb waiter here, so at some point someone's going to crawl into it. But like, there's just total leaps, and I guess maybe in all the movies we can go back but like the scene where they crashed a plane into the ice. The ice is clearly an inch, like a foot and a half thick. They can't walk on it because it's cracking. And yet this giant freaking dinosaur is chasing them, running across the ice.
It's so funny that you say that, because my husband said the same thing. But then it's like, yeah, you just have to let it go.
It's so funny.
Look,
See, I feel like any
like,
week you and I could just be completely reversed on this, and you could be tearing this apart. And I hate tearing it apart because it is fun. And like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed watching the original characters back, and that they actually had something to do. They don't just show up as Luke Skywalker and it's like, oh yeah, he had a crappy life and now he's a piece of, he gave up.
And they gave him their own Avengers moment with the original theme playing in the background
Once couldn't afford John Williams' theme? What is going on here?
Getting back to the ice really quick, I didn't really have a problem with the thickness or the fragility of the ice, but I did have a problem with Chris Pratt falling in and not getting hypothermia after coming out of that water.
We had that discussion too. But then again, like I said, if you go back to the original one, when they talk about how the raptors can get up to cheetah speed, and yet every person in that movie can outrun the raptors, like, no, you can't, because you can't outrun a cheetah. So you always have to suspend your disbelief in that sense, because they
correct. Well, you know, that scene where Claire is trying to get away and she's crawling, and this thing's like standing right over her, and she goes into the swamp, and it's a great visual. It's almost like a reverse Jaws type of thing.
Holding her breath under the water.
But again, like, I never felt like this thing was going to grab her. Like, it just, he sniffed around. Oh, she went in the water. I guess, okay, I'm going to go on my way.
I was completely engaged for the length of this. And going back to the original 3, I think that these 3 Jurassic World movies as a whole were all stronger than the arc of the first 3. Obviously the first movie is perfect, but like, to me, it's very diminishing returns, the second movie and the third movie.
In this regard, those were just created as individual movies. And you could say the same thing about the original Star Wars trilogy. No one sat down and thought out everything all at once. And the same thing holds true. But in Jurassic World, Trevorrow, after the second one came out, he said, everything is leading to this third movie. I am building up to something. What that was, I still have no idea. But at least he had a plot, like, at least they had some kind of, like, how are you going to make a franchise, a $1 billion trilogy, and not hash out, here's act 1, here's act 2, and here's our finale?
Having said that, I'd just like to go on record and say that Jurassic 3 is underrated. I've always liked that one better than Lost World.
I agree with you,
that was
Jim.
in the books. You know, the whole thing with the pterosaurs, like, that's in the original Jurassic Park book, but obviously didn't make it into the movie. The idea that they have these aerial drones.
I like the third one better than the second one. I don't love the second movie.
And the Spinosaurus is a scary ass dinosaur.
Absolutely.
When the phone starts going off,
yes,
they know he's coming. It's Jaws. But it's just a phone ring.
The thing I like about the third movie is, his parents are quite annoying. The kid,
but I think that's brilliant.
Eric,
that they lied to get.
The kid, Eric, is like one of the most ingenious kids I've ever seen in a film.
Well, as I said, I think Maisie could have got herself out of this place. and you know, the kid in that movie probably, I don't need you, parents. I can figure this out.
Yeah. I think the audience is kind of, once Jurassic 3 came out, I think, and I was guilty of this before I saw it. Oh, it can't be good. Spielberg didn't direct it. Yeah. So I think it lost points going into it. But I didn't expect anything when I went to see it. And I was surprised.
I don't know. You know, there's one where Ian, when they first get together, and Ian says, "Wait, you're Owen Grady, right? You were in Jurassic World?" Not a fan.
I'm like, not a fan of Jurassic World.
Maybe that's my headline right there.
And Ian, at one point, like he is, I think it's the character of Kayla that looks at him funny and he buttons his shirt. So it's like,
oh, I know.
He looks at him like, really? And he's like, oh, and he looks down and he buttons his shirt.
That was a nice nod to the original as well. But again, we end this movie exactly where we ended off at the end of the second movie. Humanity now just has to deal with swarms of pterosaurs attacking you whenever you go to the beach. We're okay with this?
Well, Trevorrow, to me, this still sounds like a name that Scooby-Doo would use as an alias when he's checking into a hotel. But Trevorrow, and he's got a point here, is like, well, think about it. You know, we live with bears, we live with tigers, we live with lions. We don't see them every day, but we know that they're out there. So that kind of might be the same thing, you know, and they're predators, but they're not like coming into the cities to eat people. They're
correct. And what's going to happen is they're now apex predators. So they're going to eat all the bears and they're going to eat all the things that we never see in the woods. And now there's going to be nothing left. And then they're going to come into the cities and eat us. We saw what happened in Jurassic Park 2.
The problem is actually that they've put all the dinosaurs in one small area. So, I mean, I think that you could argue for...
Which is also a joke, because you're talking about animals that existed over the course of millions of years. Some of them never interacted with each other at all. You're going to tell me that those ecosystems stayed the same?
I think what you could argue for is maybe that without the interference of humans, the ecosystem might reach stasis, you know, like things would balance out, which ecosystems usually do when we don't stick our fingers in them.
Well, that's
so.
Yeah, good luck with that. I don't see that happening anytime soon.
But, you know, I think that the big thing that people probably wanted from this movie was, you know, some emotional resolution for the characters, which I think that you get. I think that you get that for the characters.
Are they going to adopt Maisie now?
I think she's theirs. I think she belongs to them. Yes.
You just own a human? It's like, she's lived with us for 4 years. She's mine now. I'm not really sure that that's the way it works.
She chooses to go back with them.
That
put
little
it that way.
made in InGen on the back of her leg, like an action figure.
And I do want to say the visual of the burning locusts was pretty cool.
So the scene, right? So the scene where the T-Rex, no, I guess it was the Giganotosaurus. And he's chasing them and they're trying to get into the treehouse, the control treehouse or whatever. And as those locusts are coming down, even though their wings are on fire, they're able to still fly. And he snaps at one as it goes by him. Flashback a couple of weeks ago, as you know, I am in a truck all day long and I'm watching this cardinal, super male, bright red cardinal, and he is chasing a bug. And the bug is zipping back and forth. And this cardinal is right on him. This is like National Geographic right in front of my eyes, because his head never stops. His head never moves. His head stays still. And his body is just flipping back and forth as he's zoning in on this bug. And I'm like, that's a dinosaur right there. It was just a cool little moment. And when I saw that in the movie, I'm like, it immediately sent me back to that. And
hopefully it was Hopper from Bug's Life.
I don't know. You know, they're going to, even though they claim that this is the end of the franchise, someone's going to reboot this eventually.
Well, the problem is they keep discovering new dinosaurs. So they have to we got to make another movie.
Correct. Yeah. Make them bigger.
There's a more fearsome predator that now that the T-Rex has to deal with.
Yeah. I say, you know what? Let's go away from dinosaurs and lean into prehistoric swine. And we can just call it Jurassic Pork. 65 million years in the bacon. All right, I got one more. This movie has jumped the shark. No, I take it back. This movie has jumped the megalodon. Funny. Not funny.
It's not a megalodon, but the scene
Mosasaurus
in the beginning where it comes out of the water and it grabs the fish.
Yeah,
like, I still have, PTSD from Jaws. So that, like, anything coming out of the water like that freaks me out.
But that's like that thing is so big that you'd be like Monstro. You'd just be like sitting inside his belly going, how do I get out of here?
See, it's interesting too. I personally think something that big wouldn't even bother hunting on surface.
No, right.
I think it would just go like really deep.
Yeah. And eat all the giant squid.
I was very happy to see the screen debut of the Dimetrodon, which was always one of my favorite dinosaurs.
Right? I always he was like the go-to little guy, if he had like plastic dinosaurs, the Dimetrodon. And I never perceived him as being like malicious, but
he was, remember, Journey to the Center of the Earth. It was
that's
a big,
right.
Yeah.
Well, that's because you could just take a chameleon and slap
And
a
just
fin
stick
on
a
his
fin
back.
on his back. Yeah.
Right. Just like, look, we got a dinosaur here.
But I thought what was interesting about the behind the scenes was this was the movie that had the most physical animatronics of all the Jurassic Park movies created for it. So they created 18 real
They did go back to old
dinosaurs.
school,
Well, not real, but real as in terms of being physically on set. Critics are going towards the negative side on this. Unfortunately, whenever I'm looking for a review to quote, it's always the bad ones that catch my eye. This one was from Rolling Stone. A DOA attempt to wring one last drop out of an already depleted brand. Not very funny, but kind of mean.
Extremely mean.
Wow. Suddenly my review is a good one.
Like Christina was saying, I was invested and I was entertained. And that's sometimes really all you can ask of a big budget popcorn movie. You know, it's junk food. You may have forgotten it, a couple of days or a couple of hours later. But while I was sitting there, I wasn't thinking of my worries, my problems.
Apparently,
and for that, I thank you, Mr. Trevorrow. So what kind of buckets would we give to Jurassic World Dominion?
I feel like a real Debbie Downer now. Sorry. Everyone else enjoyed it. I'll give it a 3.
3 buckets? Is that a charity bucket?
Yeah, I originally had 2.5. You guys, you feel really bad.
Well, go for it. 2.5.
Such a reluctant, truculent 3.
But I hate to be that guy. And my wife always tells me, she's like, you always nitpick this stuff, and
you have the right to not like it.
Yeah, you do.
I know.
There's lots of things I don't like.
I'm gonna give it the extra half bucket just because the original characters came back and they had a solid storyline behind them. So I will stick with my 3. How's that?
Yeah, well, I'll go 3.5. It was above average. I liked it.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say the same, 3.5.
Okay.
That was, like I said, having rewatched the whole thing, I would say that the arc of these 3 films I thought was tighter than the initial 3. I still find something to like in all the movies of this franchise. I guess
I do like this franchise.
I just like dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Who doesn't? Who wakes up and says dinosaurs? Ugh, they're not real.
And
also, I don't know if I told you guys this. I have 4 Jurassic Park related shirts. I had to decide which one to wear to this film because this is how much I like this film franchise. This is actually, I probably like watching this more than most film franchises.
This aspect of the conversation, I think, speaks directly to the glow that still exists around the original Jurassic Park, because I don't think you needed to be a dinosaur fan, and I completely was when that movie came out, to be just enamored by it. It was like nothing. And people say this all the time, but really, it was like nothing I had ever seen before.
Absolutely. I remember sitting in that theater like it was yesterday. It was mind blowing. You were seeing real dinosaurs. This is, this is not a guy in a rubber suit. This is not claymation. This is not a Gila lizard with a fin taped to his back. These are living, breathing creatures.
So there's always goodwill, I think, generated from that first movie. So that's why I usually go into these subsequent films very positively.
I'm going to say that Christina's probably watched Camp Cretaceous.
Oh, on Netflix. Right.
It's actually pretty well done. If you want to talk about kids being resourceful and
apparently season 2 is going to reveal how Dodgson got his hands back on that Barbasol can.
Speaking of that Barbasol can, where's Nedry's money? You give him a big satchel full of cash.
Now, and again, the Barbasol can, is that just something like a memento? Because the embryos couldn't have survived in there.
I guess, it's kind of like, look what I tried to do at one point. I don't know. Because, it wasn't successful.
All right. So let us leave now Jurassic World. And we're going to go into another park. Actually, this is just tons of fun today, this episode. We're visiting another amusement park, Westworld. So join us after the break.
Would you like to recapture winter's refreshing coolness right now? Take the flavors you like best, the richness of fruits, the zest of colas. Mix them into iced cold beverages. Pour into generous-sized cups. And you have the goodness of our cold drinks. They're ready now at our refreshment stand.
Look, ice cream still the top favorite. Try some and thrill to the ice cream taste. Yep, it's real good.
The favorite of young and old alike. The smooth, flavor-rich cream, heaped and overflowing, delicious, and refreshing.
Okay, we're back and we're talking about another Michael Crichton property, Westworld.
What's interesting about this is you can see where he has the kernel of an idea and then he doesn't quite achieve it here, and then he sort of flashes it out later with Jurassic
Well, I think that this is brilliant. Now, first of all, let me just start by saying that this is a movie that I saw as a kid. And this was one of my cherished 4:30 movies that used to show on ABC television on weekday afternoons. It's one of those that has always haunted me. So I always thought of it from my memory as a horror film, and I still watch it.
Can I ask what one scene like makes it horror for you?
Yul Brynner, that entire scene where he's like an unstoppable killer at the end.
Yeah.
And then especially when the older husband, I don't even know if you ever know his name, but he's in medieval world and he gets stabbed by the Black Knight.
Yeah.
So that itself was horrific enough for me.
See, the snake scene always freaked me out because as a kid, we had rattlesnakes and we were always told to be careful and watch out. And the idea of a living, breathing animal attached to you freaked me out. And that's a real snake on his arm, by the way.
Yeah. And it broke through into the skin.
They milked it, but it didn't matter.
There's a couple of things I want to mention up front. First of all, is anyone else disconcerted by the resemblance of young James Brolin to Christian Bale? Because he looks a lot like Christian Bale.
Separated
Even my son said something. He was like, he looks like Christian Bale. Like, I know. There's something about him. But the other thing that's interesting to me is how many stories are sort of based on this idea, not just nothing can go wrong, which is
always
like the sort of the core tenet.
What, the Titanic? She's unsinkable.
As soon as somebody says nothing can go wrong, that everything will go wrong.
This is foolproof. We've vetted this. We've tested it.
Yep.
But also,
no expense spared.
The idea of how many stories are based on this idea of doing anything you want. Like even the concept of like the Purge movie series is basically the same concept, right? You can do anything you want.
Well, that's movies. Yeah.
But it, in some way, I was really wondering this time when I was watching it, like what would a woman visitor get out of Westworld specifically? Because it basically seems like you're there to have sex and kill stuff.
Yeah, they might as well just call this Hump World.
Well, here we go. Here we go. Now, on this viewing, and I've seen this a lot, this movie. Yeah. This viewing is the first time that I realized that older couple, and it's the husband that gets stabbed by the Black Knight. The woman is going to Roman world.
Yeah.
And when they're talking about it on the hovercraft, like Westworld is this. Medieval world is this, Roman world is this. The husband worryingly looks at her like what are you going to be up to in Roman world? So I think that might be the Bridgerton of 1973 going to Roman world.
That is funny. I caught that as well. That look he gives her, like,
because the woman in the commercial at the beginning when she goes to, I've been from Roman world, the men and the robots.
But you kind of wonder though, like, especially when you think about gender roles in medieval times and also in the 19th century, there's not a lot for a woman visitor to get out of those worlds.
No, I don't think that there would be any women visitors to Westworld.
Yeah.
I think maybe Roman world is the concession.
I wouldn't even want to go to Westworld. If you're living an authentic in the Wild West where you're stinky and you don't have a bath, Roman world, at least you can get a bath.
Well, let me tell you, the sequel called Future World adds another park, Future World, and that looks like the best of all of them, but that's not featured here.
I thought that was Logan's Run.
It could be. It could be.
But none of them are accurate because they don't include dysentery or cholera.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, you don't want the bad things. You just want the good things.
No, hopefully in Westworld, they at least have chapstick. You don't have to put horse poopy on your lips. Chap. But so Richard Benjamin, by the way, Jim, do you remember the TV show Quark?
No.
Capitalize on Star Wars. And Richard
No.
Benjamin was the captain of the ship. Oh, you don't remember?
No,
the
I
show
don't
at all?
remember
Oh,
this. I do remember Saturday the 14th.
I do remember that as well. No, this was a very short-lived show, and his co-pilot was a giant plant named Ficus.
No,
Nothing, huh? All right.
Nothing.
Well, I'm
Nothing.
gonna have to dig those up,
But speaking of our two leads here, Richard Benjamin and James Brolin, they were apparently cast less than 2 days before filming started.
yeah, this is ridiculous. Like, how do you
Crichton had
operate
no
like that?
say in their casting. It was
How do you-
MGM.
But it's like you're going to start filming and you don't have your two lead actors. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
Although I will say, so it's brilliant because it sets up with the news reporter and he's interviewing people as they're getting off the tram. So it's setting you up and it's telling you about the three worlds or whatever, this vacation of the future kind of a thing. But I completely forgot that they said they were on a hovercraft, because when they're and I'm like, they're flying really low. And I'm like, oh, it's a train. It's not a plane.
But when you see like the terrible matte shots of the hovercraft in its entirety on the screens,
Oh,
in
yeah,
the
no,
security
it's-
office, it looks like just like a metal turtle. That's what
Yeah.
it looks like.
But
But
it's
yeah,
also-
obviously
yeah.
it's a takeoff at the time on Disney and Disney World, because that had just opened 2 years before this movie came out. And I actually read that the idea came to Crichton after writing Pirates of the Caribbean in Disneyland. So
Which is why
like,
the line that Jeff Goldblum says in the original movie is funny
Yes.
about the pirates eating
Yeah.
the tourists.
They don't eat the tourists.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's
but
like,
yeah,
oh.
I could just imagine audiences in 73 like looking at each other. Good satire.
Yeah, but at that time, everyone wanted to go to Disneyland.
Of course.
I don't know if they necessarily want to go to medieval land.
It's not told, but just from reading some background, this takes place in 1983. So it's their future rather than ours. But
No.
also, you never know where it is. Just in the middle of some vast desert. These three lands. But I do love, and it does look like a map of Disney World when you just see that overhead shot of the three land, like that triangular shot
Yeah.
of the three circles, like adjacent to each other, and the roadways that connect each one of them.
You could buy one of those in the gift shop, probably.
Right. And the name of the park is actually Delos, right? It's
Delos.
not
Is
it's
that
not
the park or the company that?
it's not Westworld. Like that's a place you can go
That's
to.
what-
within
that's like
the
going to-
park.
That's
Adventure-
like the Magic
Right.
Kingdom
Yeah.
or Epcot
Right,
or
correct.
something. Yeah.
And it's $1,000 a day in 1973, or I guess $1983, which still seems like a lot of dollars.
Adjusted for inflation, that is actually $6,475 today. Oh,
Yeah.
wait, inflation just went up. It is now 7.5. Wait, 8,000. Still cheaper than Disney's Galactic Hotel, by the way.
Is it
Which
though?
what-
That's like
No,
2,000 a
no.
night, is it?
No, it's like 5,000 for like a 3-day weekend.
Oh, it really? Okay.
It's ridiculous. But I think this is what they want that to be.
Right. It's
It's
fully
that
immersive.
completely immersive. Obviously, there's not killer robots. At least I hope not.
Yeah, Michael Crichton seems like he anticipated cosplay and LARPing like long before anybody really thought of,
No, I mean,
thought of the
concept wise,
idea
and like you
that-
said, you can see the DNA of what Jurassic Park becomes.
Sure,
Mm.
like so many aspects of it. Obviously, like the park going wrong, but even little things like the whole park is meant to be run from one room. Everything is computerized.
Which is ridiculous. Those
You
guys don't have vents. Come
Not only
on.
that whole bank of computers now fits on my phone.
Yeah.
That's
And you don't say to your guests over the loudspeaker, nothing can go wrong. You know,
Mhm.
you don't want to hear that when you get on a plane or
Richard Benjamin's character, Peter. Like, he doesn't seem to know the rules. You don't have to sign some
because
kind
he
of a
hasn't been
waiver.
there before, right?
No,
If
but
he
you
hasn't
have to
been there
sign a
before.
waiver if you're given live ammunition to go and shoot people. Like, it just, like, he doesn't know any. It's like, how do you know which is a
Maybe
robot and
he
who's a
closes
human?
his eyes during trailers like me. He doesn't want to know. He wants to just experience it.
I don't know.
From the
That's
get-go.
if I'm paying $1,000 back then, I need to know what's going to happen in this park. Are all the horses? Because at one point, and this is the nice thing, which is these guys go about their day and they're, robbing banks and they're shooting people or whatever, and all this crazy stuff's going on. And then you'd see the park employees come in, take all the robots, they take them down in the control room, they fix them back up, they put them back out for tomorrow's event. And one of them is a horse. So are all these horses robots as well?
You would assume so, yeah.
Because
But
the
you got to
snake
think to
is a
yourself that
robot.
where are all these people at the end when the robots are going crazy?
That's why I was surprised there was never a sequel. But you said that there's Future World.
Yes.
But it's just, it doesn't pick up where this left off. It's
It
just like,
does.
oh,
It does.
oh,
it picks up
does.
3 years later.
So they
when they
address the fact,
supposedly made everything safer.
Yes.
but not for this movie. So then it's just
Yeah.
aliens.
Although
robot aliens
maybe Future World would have been a better pairing with Jurassic World, because it is all about clones more so than it is about killer robots.
Interesting.
But that's another conversation. Perhaps we can cover that movie.
Well, perhaps
sometime in
if
the
I had
future.
known about that, I didn't even realize that there was a TV show they made beyond Westworld, which came out in 1980. And only 5 episodes, but it was some mad guy. The whole premise is that some crazy guy gets a hold of the robots and once a week releases them, whether it's a robot quarterback that goes amok during a football game or someone on a naval ship. So once a week you have the battle of robot.
Richard Benjamin is the audience. So he's experiencing this for the first time, just like the audience is. So he's like your key into this world. And James Brolin's John character is there to guide you, just like he's there to guide him. He can explain everything that's going on to you, just like he does to Peter. Then you find out as the movie goes on, they've all got guns, the robots, but here, try to shoot me. You can't.
Yeah.
Because it's programmed not to. Why would you put real bullets in these guns?
Right, correct, exactly. Right.
And why is it necessary to give the robots real guns?
We're still asking ourselves
when they're not meant to kill you. So yes,
laser tag would have been a better. Yeah.
But I do think that, after the carnage of the bank robbery, it is just a very eerie, bizarre scene when all these crew members, after everybody's gone to sleep, after, they've done their damage and they've done their dirty deeds, they're all sleeping it off. And all this crew just comes silently, puts their little lights on, and you hear that weird synthesized music as they're just dragging the bodies away. And then they leave everything clean again. Probably just exactly what they do at Disney World, just minus the bodies.
Some secret team swoops in and cleans everything up. One thing I noticed this time, the very particular sound of the gunslinger's boots. Do you think they put tap plates on his boots? Because that's what it sounds like if you really think about it. Like for tap shoes?
Yeah. Oh, maybe. It's probably like either that or more than likely it's probably not even caught on audio. It's a Foley ad,
which would probably be tap plates.
Could be. Well, no. Yeah. You're asking if they literally put plates on his shoes
that's
while he's walking around in the desert.
I was like, it sounds like tap shoes.
Boots on dirt don't make a sound. So, and he didn't have spurs.
Because you can hear him coming, right? That's part of the menace of that character. And again, like all the things this movie prefigures, it also, you see a lot of Terminator elements in this.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. It's been said that Arnold took inspiration from Yul Brynner for his role as Terminator. And you get foreshadowing too. You see some scenes backstage with the tech repair team talking about a central malfunction to one of the mannequins. And then the other guy says, another one?
Yeah.
And then they start talking about central mechanism psychosis, which sounds like a lot of nonsense.
But it's a fancy way to say a computer virus. Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
And that's what this is.
Yeah, you mentioned Schwarzenegger taking inspiration for this character, but John Carpenter also cites Yul Brynner's character as inspiration for Michael Myers.
Well, there you go. There's the horror movie connection. That's all you need to know. This plays as a horror movie.
But you're right, because he is indestructible. He shoots him, he goes out a window, and then the next day he shows right back up again.
But I love the fact that they shoot him twice. And by the time at the end, when he shows up again, they're dismissing him. Like, this guy again? Let me do it this time.
Because it's an amusement park.
Yeah.
What part of getting locked up in jail is amusing, though? Like, is that part of the cosplay?
I know. What would have happened if they didn't break him? He would have spent the rest of his vacation sitting in that cell.
Right. Exactly. I paid $1,000 for this. Did anybody pick up on the fact of who our actress is? Miss Carey, who only had a little cameo. She was the mistress. No, that's Michelle Barrett. That's Mrs. Gene Roddenberry.
Oh, really?
Yes,
I did not know that.
Nurse Chapel from the original Star Trek, as well as the voice of every starship in any Star Trek ever. And of course, we got Dick Van Patten, who was fun.
And you never find out what happens to him.
Like, no, you don't.
Sheriff and his
character just kind of disappears at the end of the film.
Maybe they figured the audience wouldn't be able to handle seeing that their comedic foil get killed.
Yeah. You picked up on the fact that the chief supervisor was Dr. Rudy from $6 Million Man. That was Rudy Wells.
Too bad they couldn't really play it as being the same character, because he obviously dies because of lack of ventilation in the computer room.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe that's why they invented vent rooms. Now they're like,
Maybe.
we saw what happened in Westworld. You obviously need some air in there. Yes. Yeah. There's some sex spots going on here. I don't know. So it doesn't seem like you're assigned any kind of a storyline. You just go in and do whatever you want to do.
Right. And then it's like they program the robots according to how you're responding to what's happening in the moment. That's what it seems like.
Yeah. So you heard this whole Google thing where somebody was fired because he claimed that their AI went sentient.
No, he wasn't fired. He was put on leave.
Oh, yeah. Okay. He was fired. Actually, he was shot by the AI.
But it seems, I don't think it's very nefarious, because I think the guy's a nutcase. Because if what he said was true, then he would be fired or disappeared. One of the two. But because he was put on leave, I'm suspect of him. It's
I
can see the conversation. Maybe you should take some time off.
But from what I understand, this AI, like based on what you're asking it, will try and come up with a sentient response. Not necessarily it's thinking, I'm afraid I'm gonna. It literally told the guy, I'm afraid I'm gonna get turned off. At what point, like, I'm not gonna unplug you.
Yeah.
This is how Skynet started, by the way.
But was the robot programmed to say that?
Well, that's
the question.
Just it, which is it's algorithms, right? Because you're programming to make a response, and then it makes a response you don't want to hear, and you're like, oh yeah, we did something wrong here. So I don't know.
So speaking of that, Crichton often says that it's misconstrued, that the point of this movie is that technology is dangerous. What he actually wanted to get across is that corporations control everything and they make bad decisions.
And he's still I think every book that he comes across. I read 2 of his books when I was on vacation, and that's basically and takeaway. Yeah.
But you really get that sense when you see inside the boardroom scenes where they're talking about this central malfunction. And well, maybe we should shut down. Oh, that investors wouldn't be confident in us anymore if we shut down. We can't do that. And there's a scene where I don't even know if he's got a name, but the supervisor from the $6 Million Man is talking about, in some cases, we don't really know what this malfunction is, because in some cases, these are robots being built by robots. So we don't know exactly how they work.
Again, Skynet. Yeah. I was all ready to crap on the a couple times you see it from Yul Brynner's point of view with this really pixelated.
Right, yeah.
Apparently that was very state of the art.
That's like worse than Pong.
There was a lot of energy that went into making that graphic. I could probably do it on my computer right now. Yes. Yeah, that snake always freaked me out, even though it's a robot snake laying there, which makes me think that they killed a real snake and just stuck some wires inside it on the table. I don't know. But even, go back to the medieval guy when they're having these slow motion brawls or whatever. And the girl comes out and she's like, my lord, Daphne, my lord. And he just starts making out with her. I'm like, this kid looks like she's 12. What the hell's going on in this park?
For the baser aspects of our society, this is what they're going to do. Also, I have the question, the bar brawl, the night before everything goes nuts. If you can't hurt a guest, why can a robot punch you?
I don't know.
Maybe they're not really hurting you.
Bam, bam, bam.
Or if the robot senses, oh, this guy wants me to punch him, it's okay.
There you go. I'm sure that'll hold up in court.
Okay, so
he asked me to punch him.
Fast forward to the next morning when, again, Benjamin and Brolin come across Yul Brynner, and he wants to actually kill them this time. So, and you really think that the robot does want to kill them. It's more than just a virus, or he's very malicious. And then Brolin says, I'll take care of him this time. And then he gets shot. And then there's that line that you just said, he shot me. Yeah. He shot me.
He shot me.
I'm going back to the hotel, to the concierge. My friend just got shot. I want my money back.
So we can give you a free voucher for another weekend? I don't know.
And I need an iron for my room.
That's right. You got fresh water around here? This place would not last a week here, because once those Yelp reviews came in, forget it. People would be like, yeah, I lost my grandma. She got shot. I did like that scene where they threw the acid on him and he's all bubbling up.
Yeah.
they just ground up, what do you call it? Alka-Seltzer in his makeup so that it bubbles. I'm like, that's ingenious.
And
right
talk
there.
about the correlations to Jurassic Park as well. How much was that like the raptor scene where the two kids are in the kitchen and like they need to sense movement in order to know where those kids are?
That would have been great if the gunslingers went, oh.
So Richard Benjamin gets chased all the way through Roman world.
That's a lot of running right there. You went
And then to
3 different
medieval
worlds.
world, because he sees the Queen and the Black Knight finally reunited on their thrones. And they've run out of power, but apparently Yul Brynner has that full 12-hour charge going.
Powered up.
But when he runs through Roman world, he sees the dead wife from the beginning of the movie because she's like and again, I'd never noticed that before, but you get confirmation. Yup. The husband and wife split up. She went to Roman world while he went to medieval world.
Maybe she was just boinked to death.
Whatever happens in medieval world stays
I don't know
in medieval world. But of course, just like any other horror movie worth its salt, you get the final jump scare as well. Yes. But not before he rescues the one female robot. She was chained up in a dungeon or something, so I don't know what her purpose was. But obviously she was not put there by other robots. So she's asking for help and he gives her water. And that for some reason freaked me out as a kid, that scene.
You killed her.
When she drinks the water and no water. And then is that all you needed to do to Yul Brynner is to dump some water on him and
short him out?
But wasn't he shooting whiskey?
But he was, and then he washed his face after.
So he's like Bender, which is he can drink alcohol.
Yeah.
If you get water on him, he rusts.
Richard Benjamin finally torches Yul Brynner. And after he burns, that's when you get the final jump scare. And then his face comes off and shorts out. And I love the overuse in 70s films, especially horror movies, of slow motion. And there's a lot of it here. And we didn't talk about the score yet, the very dissonant electronic science fiction-y score that's mixed with like an old-timey Western score as well. I think it's very effective.
Yeah, it was funny that we were watching this and we were eating pizza while we were watching this. So halfway through the movie, we paused to like clean up the pizza stuff. And my son's like, how much longer is this movie? And I'm like, 45 minutes. And he's like, I thought there was going to be like the robots massacring all the people. I'm like, just hang on.
Yeah. Just get to the good stuff.
It's like, just hang on for the last half of this
I don't want
film.
to see any character building. I just want to see mayhem.
But the thing is, there's not really a lot of character building per se.
No, because you don't care about the two main characters.
Yeah.
You're not connected. Do they have a family back
I know.
home?
No, you get throwaway references to an ex-wife from
Benjamin,
Peter that he's still tied to. Yeah,
right, that's why he's there. His buddy's like, all right, you need to just get away. Let's go to this Western world where you can shoot somebody. Now we have shooting ranges for that stuff. You want to go vent?
I didn't realize that Richard Benjamin had become a director. He directed a ton of stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
Like what? Well, what's on his resume?
He directed My Favorite Year with Peter O'Toole.
Wow.
He directed The Money Pit, Little Nikita, Mermaids, Made in America, like a lot of stuff.
Do we have him to thank for the singing into a wooden spoon in the kitchen scene?
I guess so.
Richard Benjamin.
He created that trope, that cliche.
Come on, we've all done it.
Lots of other interesting behind the scenes stuff. Yul Brynner desperately needed the money for this movie. By the time the early 70s came around, he was like almost destitute. So they paid him $75,000, which is almost $500,000 in today's dollars back then.
I'll take it.
And the reason, I guess this was part of his deal, the reason that they chose two lesser known actors, because William Shatner was being considered as one of the leads, that they wanted to give Brynner top billing. So they went with Benjamin and Brolin as the two leads.
Well, he's right there on that poster.
Yeah.
Front and center.
The gunslinger character of Yul Brynner almost directly based on his character from Magnificent Seven. He almost looks exactly the same.
I was going to say same costume.
reading that they tried a scene, and it exists. They filmed it where the robot, the gunslinger character, is killed on the rack, the medieval rack, with his arms.
Oh, really?
Off.
Oh.
I'm like, well, how could you fool him into getting on the rack? You know, so I don't know how that would have worked.
Now put your other arm up here. Really? Yeah, like this? Yeah, like that.
Yep.
Hold it there.
The Western set also used for Blazing Saddles.
Hey, there you go.
And also, this was one of the few Crichton films that was not based on one of his novels because it was never a book. Well, it was, but after the fact, they released his screenplay as a mass market paperback.
And he directed this too, correct?
Yes.
Yes, he did. Yep.
It's a Michael Crichton product.
Now, just to bring back the sequel, Future World, it's revealed in that movie that 50 guests were killed and 95 staff were killed or wounded during this massacre in Westworld. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, if anybody's watched Westworld, the HBO series, like they really kind of pick up. There's a lot of I think they're pretty true to what was set up in this movie, but just went to the idea that these robots do become sentient and start to realize that they're being used. And
I gave up on that show after season 1.
I think you and I both agree that we never made it through season 2.
But reading some research on this, they've planted some Easter eggs in the show that would make it possible for the show to be a sequel to this movie rather than a reboot.
Oh, that's cool.
It was a hit. It was released in August of 1973.
This was MGM's biggest box office of the year.
Of that year. It cost $1.2 million to make, and it made back $10 million. So 10 times its budget. I think that we're ready to give this buckets, and I hold this pretty highly. I would give this 4 buckets. I think it still holds up today. It still gives me that creep out factor. And again, I view it as a horror movie, more so than science fiction or Western.
I agree that it's a horror movie. I would give it like 3.5. It's a movie that I like. It's not a movie that I go back and watch and rewatch over and over again. But, there's a lot going on here where you could see that he was a little ahead of the curve in terms of his thinking and his storytelling. So it's sort of interesting as that kind of artifact of, I think, of a storyteller's thought process, if nothing else.
Yeah. I'll go right between you, 3 3/4. Yeah. No, it's the only other fact I came across, which was that whole Roman world was basically shot in Harold Lloyd's estate. Before he sold it. So, and I guess it doesn't even exist now. It's all been torn down, turned into condominiums, probably. Oh, that was fun.
So, what else did we do this week?
It becomes pretty apparent I don't do much because unless you want to talk Obi-Wan and Ms. Marvel, I have not watched anything. I started watching next week's homework assignment, but that is it. I have not been able to do anything.
I have been reading a book called The Unidentified by Colin Dickey. And it's sort of a cultural examination of why people believe in unprovable and irrational things like the Loch Ness Monster or like ancient aliens and things like that, and how these ideas sort of take root, how they become popularized, and how they make their way into the culture, and how belief in irrational things paves the way
History Channel has 100 different shows on ancient aliens.
Paves the way for conspiracy theories. It's a very interesting book about this topic.
Are you going down the Bigfoot route? Are you going to tell me that?
I never believe it. I don't believe in anything. I don't know if you know.
You don't believe in anything?
Oh no. I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in Bigfoot. I don't believe in anything.
Listen, I don't think it has anything to do. But I truly believe that if we know everything about this world, then it's a pretty boring place. I would like to think there's still some mystery out there.
I mean, there's a pretty fun, interesting stories in here, but also some really interesting stories about the people who sort of found sort of the root causes of a lot of these beliefs, like Charles Fort and things like that. So it's very interesting. The Unidentified by Colin Dickey.
I am a sucker for music, rock and roll biopics. And in the past few weeks, a series has appeared on Hulu called Pistol, which is directed,
Sex Pistols, yeah.
directed by Danny Boyle of Train Spotting and 27 Days Later. So 28, 2027. Was that the Sandra Bullock
That was
movie?
the prequel. That was 27 days.
28 Days Later. Even though I'm a sucker for biopics, by and large, a lot of them are really corny, where they need to create dramatic moments over like the creation of songs or whatnot. Like, this is the day that Queen came up with Bohemian Rhapsody. And like, Freddie Mercury will be playing, or Rami Malek will be playing the riff on the piano, and everybody stops. Oh, brilliant. We will change the world. This is the moment where we knew everything was going to change. And that's not how it happened.
Right.
Life is mundane. Maybe they're thinking at best, oh, this works. Maybe other people will like it too. There is some of that in Pistol, but I'm really enjoying it. This is based on the memoirs of Steve Jones, so it's based through his eyes. And I'm not all the way through it yet, but there's an actress portraying Chrissy Hynde, and she figures largely into this story. And of course, we already have Johnny Rotten, John Lydon, is come into it. I haven't got to Sid Vicious yet. It's really entertaining, and I'm really enjoying it. So if anybody has Hulu and they're interested, the show is called Pistol.
Very cool. Yes,
Right.
I promise to get out of my cage and do something next week so I can contribute.
So speaking of next week, what are we doing?
I think we're going to infinity and beyond, or maybe not.
That's yet to be seen, but we are covering
Correct.
Lightyear next week.
The first Pixar movie to actually be released in the theater in probably 4 years.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. How
yeah,
they've
and we
given
will
the
talk
Pixar
about it
films
again.
short shrift.
Yeah, until you have a established character.
Although, yeah, this is
A
undeniable,
beloved
right?
IP. Some of those sequels are going right to VHS back in the day. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, but what Toy Story? They've got 3 sequels, mega blockbusters, right?
And Toy Story 2 is probably one of my all-time favorite sequels ever made. Probably one of the greatest movies ever made. And I will fight you on that.
I just want to see Emperor Zurg. That's what I'm going to see.
I am your father. I guess we'll also have to find out why Captain America is voicing him and not Tim Allen.
To me, that makes perfect sense. Tim Allen voices a toy. This is a real person.
So the toy's based on this guy.
Right.
Okay, but this takes place in the future.
Oh,
We're
already poking holes
because
we're already poking holes.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm getting on this. That how can this be a real person where you got toys based on, but the toys exist in the 1980s.
But what I'm saying though is that the toy is obviously a toy, and that
it's an actor's.
This is right.
Here's what I predict:
things that kids
Daddy,
do.
how come he doesn't sound like the toy?
Little kids? I don't know.
I don't know.
And honestly, my son loves Chris Evans and Captain America, so he's very excited that Captain America is the voice of.
I'm not saying
Lightyear.
I'm not excited. I just want to know.
So
there's a story back there somewhere.
he already put on his Captain America shirt for today.
He is in defiance of the critics. He's going to openly defy those Tim Allen fans in the theater.
Are there Tim Allen?
There's going to be, just like in Home Improvement, what was that neighbor's name that you only ever saw his head?
Wilson.
He's going to be in the back row, and that's all you're going to see is his head.
That's actually a great cosplay where you just have a fence
and a hat.
And a hat.
Yeah, and a hat. Yeah. Speaking of characters that we loved as kids, our second feature.
I'm going to apologize to Christina right now that she's going to get stuck watching this. This is way before your time.
We're not way before.
I remember watching
this.
I remember watching like a few episodes and reruns when I was a kid, but I was not attached to this.
No, you were not someone who was sitting there Sunday night waiting for this or whatever night it was on.
So
couldn't wait to watch it.
Yeah, I'm just a teeny bit too young to be to have seen it.
I'm actually halfway through the theatrical, and it shows its age. But I guess we're talking about Buck Rogers in the 25th century. If anybody doesn't realize,
with Gil Gerard, Aaron Gray, and Tweaky.
That's really the only reason we're doing this, is so I can make that noise throughout.
Now this is what we're talking about, is the theatrical version, which basically is parts 1 and 2 of the pilot, which is called Awakening, and it is available to watch on Tubi.
Tubi.
Anybody
The
that
entire
wants to watch
series is
along.
available to watch on Tubi.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
But if you want to watch along with us, you're going to watch Awakening Parts 1 and 2.
Yes. And if you have MeTV, they have a great lineup on a Saturday night, and that includes Buck Rogers.
All right. So next week,
All right.
Lightyear and Buck Rogers in the 25th
Damn.
century.
24th and a half century. Duck Dodgers.
I know. I definitely watched more Duck Dodgers than I did Buck Rogers.
yeah.
We should do a Duck Dodgers, just follow up. I'm gonna watch Duck Dodgers. That's it. I'm watching it, so. Okay. All right. Fluffer and Fluckatash. That's it. We're out.
Well, that's Sylvester.
Sylvester.
Despicable. All right.
All right.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Hey, everybody. If you like what you just heard, be sure to follow TMI Confessionals of the Nerd Kind on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or whatever you listen to your favorite podcasts on. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and then share it with your fellow movie nerd friends. It means the world to us and helps our listenership grow.
You can also find us on all of the socials, Instagram and Twitter at TMI_podcast 2018. We're on Facebook and YouTube as well. Just look for the Popcorn Bucket.
You can help support this show by visiting our TeePublic page for some TMI branded goodies such as hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, and stickers. tpublic.com/TMI Confessionals, all one word.
A 5-star review would be incredibly nice as well. I'm just saying.
Thanks again for listening. We truly appreciate you. Be sure to come back next week. We'll save some popcorn for you. Oh, Jim, you just
Been
froze.
freezing up.
Yeah.
You're frozen.
Now, you just froze.
Yeah.
You're the ones that freeze, not
No,
me.
you froze. Okay. All right. We'll figure this
If
out.
both of us think that you froze.
Well, we'll
But
get
now,
into
but
it
are you
because-
still talking to each other as I freeze?
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I
we
think
do.
both
We're
look at each other.
both like, oh, Jim froze. We talk to each other while we wait for
Yeah.
you to come back online.
Talk some more about Nope. That's how long you were frozen. You've been frozen for 500 years. Oh, wait, that's next week's episode.